Hello everyone, welcome. My name's Cameron Buchanan from the International Day Trading Academy. Now I'm welcomed here today and I'm honoured to have Shereen Lewejohann from the CME FX Futures Products Department. Welcome Shereen, looking forward to chatting with you today because it's been a while since I've looked at the FX products that the CME offer. I know when I originally started trading, I was trading one of the Euro FX products. It was a very popular product at the time, and so I'm looking forward to finding out more about some of the new products that are around. So welcome, and
Thanks.
yeah, can you tell us a little bit about your role with the CME Group?
Sure. Thanks, Cameron. Hi, everyone. My name is Shereen Lewejohann, like what Cameron has introduced me as. I run the FX business within the CME Group in the APAC region. And the Cameron's point, actually, euro dollar is still a very popular product right now in the markets.
Right. Excellent. Well, I was just wanting to know, and what our audience would like to know more about is, what's the trend that you are seeing in terms of products traded in the marketplace these days?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like we in our marketplace, we actually seen a growth in terms of adoptions into the futures and options trading in over the years. Like
Yes.
if we rewind a little bit, back in 2022, we had like a 24% growth in terms of our volume. And we fast forward into 2023, the whole of last year, what we see in the market is volatility has collapsed, right? But we still maintain the same volume which we have seen in 2022. What that tells us is that we actually that have more clients trading more volume, even though volatility is down, because quite often FX love volatility. The more volatile that is the market, the more people are able to trade. But even when in low volatility environment like last year, we actually seen a good consistent volume in our marketplace. We in fact have hit some records throughout the whole last year. So for example, in the average daily open interest, we had a record of over 2.1 million contracts. And that actually is a good indicator to say to us there's more clients trading in these products and holding the positions. And this record actually breaks down into very relevant for our region in terms of which currency it is. It's like Aussie dollar. We had that dollar CNH as well as euro dollar, Cameron, the one you're familiar with.
Yes.
Yeah. So like another currency I think is not a surprise to everybody would be dollar yen because
Yes.
of all the interest rate differential between Japan and the US, and last year all the talks about when BOJ might intervene or not. We have actually seen also increased trading in our yen futures last year with
Yes.
a record of about 180,000 contracts there, right? So over the years, so these are like the few currency pairs that definitely stand out and trends or in terms of products traded. But on top of that, it's like over the years, we have also seen different modes of execution. Sometimes I think your clients or some of our retail clients are trading more on screen. They look at the screen liquidity. But over the years, there are also other modes of execution, like what we call blocks and EFRPs, which institutional clients are doing more.
Yes.
We also seen it growing. That will help the whole ecosystem in terms of more client adoption. I
Yes.
think overall is that definitely we're seeing increased number of clients trading the G7 products, which the pairs I mentioned earlier on, as well as some of our growing emerging market products like dollar CNH in the region.
Right. So which of the CME FX products are more relevant for the retail participants to trade?
Good question. For retail, I think I start with like currencies, right? In terms of currency pairs, within CME, we have over 40 currencies pairs listed for futures. And on
Right.
the option side, we have about over 20 currency pairs, which available for retail participants to trade. But in reality, what people are trading are like 95% of them are the G7 currency pairs.
Right.
And in the region here, the top traded like currency pairs people very huge interest about is euro dollar, like Aussie dollar and also the yen dollar, which to not a surprise to all of us, I think, because of the macro environment.
Yes.
And that's the currency side, right? And if we look at like sizes, like in what sizes, because in our marketplace, we are all-to-all marketplace. So we have retail on one hand, we have institutional clients as well. So we therefore, to cater to the differing needs by the clients, we have different contract sizes within the
Yes.
future space. Yeah. So we have standard with size. We have a mini size, which is like half of a standard in terms of contract size. And the
Right.
last but not least, we have this thing called micro, which is 1/10 of a standard size. So this will cater for clients with differing needs depending on what kind of sizes they do. So a lot of people will think, oh, maybe retail are trading a lot of micro. Actually, in FX, we do see an interesting trend. 75% of retail volume are actually in standard sizes and 24% in micro. I
Right.
think, yeah, it's quite interesting for us because in other product line, micro might be the most dominant products for retail.
Right.
So we look at like why is it so? I think the driver is that the margin requirements for our standard size contract are still very manageable for a lot of the retail client base. That's why a lot of the volume is still in the standard size.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what are the typical the typical margins with the micro contracts? And when were the micro contracts introduced?
In terms of the margin, I will compare it using standard as a comparison. So one
Yes.
standard contract size using Aussie dollar as an example is 100,000 Aussie. And the margin is requirement will be like US dollar 1,450, which is about 2.2% of the
Right.
contract size. So for micro, we actually adopt the same philosophy. The margin is also maintained at about 2.2%, but because of the smaller contract size, the margin requirements is reduced by tenfold. So it's at like 145 US dollar for an Aussie dollar micro contract as an example.
Right.
Nonetheless, caveat to that is this is what CME requires on our end. So sometimes the clearing broker might have different requirements for some of the underlying clients.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
And what's the proportion of, I think you may have said this before, but what's the proportion of retail traders to other participants that trade in the FX futures?
Yeah, so I did mention before our marketplace is very diverse with institutional, with retail, and within institutional, we're broken up into different kind of client base, be it proprietary trading firms, the high frequency guys, for example, or hedge funds, or the banks, etc. So currently, what I'm seeing like globally, 70% of the volume is from the institutional proprietary firms, which is like the high frequency guys,
Yes.
followed by our hedge funds, which is about 13%, and retail is actually the third, around 6% of our total global volume.
Right.
But nonetheless, there's a very interesting trend in APAC is that retail plays a very, very significant part of our business. So the stats looks different when we look at APAC itself, like only 58% of the volume instead of the 70 compared to global, 58% is from props, and retail is actually second participants on our marketplace, standing about 30% of the volume in APAC. So that's a very it's a growing business over the years that we've seen from APAC retail participants as well.
And are there certain times during the day where there's a lot more liquidity coming into the markets for the certain different FX products? For instance, like the Aussie dollar, does it trade more in the Australian, Pacific times, or does it trade more in the US times? Do you see any differences in the liquidity in those different time frames?
Yeah, so for our G7 currency pairs, including like Aussie, the Asian pairs like Aussie yen,
Yes.
liquidity is very consistent throughout the 24 hours days in terms of the
Yes.
top of book spread that you see and the depth that you see. But in terms of volume traded, like for Aussie and even yen, currently there's still a big part of it traded by the international client base. So after in the London and US hours, and APAC is about 30% of the entire volume most of the time.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
And also, Shereen, what sort of major events can traders look for if trading FX?
Yeah. So when trading FX, I mean, US dollar definitely is a dominant currency itself. Thus, like macro data in the US itself, such as like the the Fed interest rate decision when they hike or reduce interest rate. US that what we call non-farm payroll, which happens on a Friday on every month. It is these are like unemployment data is the key major factors will drive US dollar and in turns then knock on to all the other currencies. And of course, in every specific currency pairs, like for example, in dollar yen, then the Japan interest rate decisions, the GDP growth of Japan, all this also plays a big part into the driving like some of these markets movement and the major market events to look out. So it's a
Right.
combination of the US plus also the specific countries' macro data.
Yeah, that's interesting to know. So I know we in Australia, with the Australian dollar, it's quite affected by prices of commodities like iron ore
Yeah.
and copper and those things. So that's good to know. Well,
Yeah,
thank
I think specifically for Australia is definitely like you rightly point out, is very dependent on the commodity products, and thus it also has a very strong correlation to China, the Chinese yuan.
Yes,
So macro data coming out from China quite often has also an impact into the Aussie.
yes. All right, interesting. That's good
Yeah.
to know. Well, thank you, Shereen, for joining us today. Is there anything else you wanted to share with the audience today regarding the FX futures products?
Yeah, thanks, Cameron. I think the last thing I would just kind of summarize the whole conversation is that within the CME FX products, APAC is a critical component to the growth that I've shared in terms of market trend, and that's coming from an Asian currency perspective. So things like the Aussie, the yen, the CNH are definitely the key products in our region, as well
Yeah,
as our strength in the retail client segments, a lot more retail clients trading across the different standard size or micro size contracts.
excellent. And if you want to find any more information on the FX futures products and all the specifications around the contracts, a lot of that information is very detailed in the CME Group website. So I encourage you to go and look at the website and do some study. There's a lot of articles and a lot of education on all the different types of products. And it's there's a wealth of information there if you're interested in those FX products. But one thing I like about the FX products is that trading direct with an exchange with high liquidity is important, and you're getting good consistent data feeds and good price fluctuations with very low spreads as well. So which is important. Difference between the bid and the ask price is hardly ever. There's hardly any difference in price there. So which is really good to know. So thanks, Shereen, for joining us, and we'll
Thanks,
see you again
Cameron, for
soon.
having me. Thanks, everyone, for
Bye.
your time. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Well, I hope you got some great information from that interview with Shereen from the CME Group. And if you are interested to find out a little bit more how to trade these futures products or these FX futures products, I just want to show you a little bit about, or talk to you a little bit about the specifications in a little bit more detail. Like as Shereen mentioned, there was about 40 individual contracts that you could trade, or actual markets you could trade. She talked about the G7. She talked about the emerging markets, and we talked about also the micro products. And at the start, we spoke about the Euro FX. Okay, so the euro versus the US dollar. And you can see here on the screen, this is some of the breakdown of the contract specifications of this particular product. So for every fluctuation in price, so prices move in ticks, the smallest price increment is 0.00005 euro. Okay, now that is equated to $6.25 US dollars. All right, so that's the smallest move. All right, now I'll show you some basics on how that all looks on the charts if you were going to trade this as a day trader. She also talks about the micro product. So the micro product has a lot less leverage. All right, so the fluctuation of price movement is 0.0001 euro. Now that movement is worth $1.25. So that's what the tick size is worth. So you can see it's a lot different price value. It's a tenth the size. All right, one contract of the Euro FX futures is worth 125,000 euro. One contract of the micro Euro FX futures is worth 12,500 euro. Okay, and you can see the margins are once again a lot smaller trading those products. So that basically just means you need less money in your trading account to trade a micro contract. Okay, so let's look at this chart here, and let's say, for instance, this is a 5-minute chart, and let's say you buy one Euro FX contract, all right, with a tick value of 625. You buy down here at 1.08550, and let's say you sell that contract at 1.086. So the market has moved basically 10 increments, so 10.0005 increments. Therefore, that trade in profit is worth to you $62.50. Now, this is not financial advice, but I just wanted to show you how the finances work in these markets. So it's important, if you're going to get into trading, you understand how the money works. And this is the advantage of trading with a futures contract, is that you are trading directly with the exchange, but also you take advantage of the leverage that these contracts have. You are trading a micro contract, all right, same setup, but a micro contract, and it went 10 ticks in your favor. That trade would be worth $12.50. So if you want to find out more about all the FX futures products that the CME Group have to offer, here's a list of resources, links to various websites that you can go and do your own research and to see and learn more about the particular products. Thank you for watching, and hope you got lots of great information from this video.